So we headed south. What then was a swamp all around Mobile in southern Alabama. So they said, let them go, they'll probably die, they'll never be able to survive the panthers and the gators and whatnot. But they didn't know that we were raised with these creatures. So that's when we started a reservation down near Mobile called the Porch. So I'm from the Porch Creek Indian Reservation in Atmore, Alabama. That's what it is called today. But Muskogee means people who care for the forest. Anikusa, which was the name of our tribe, was the peaceful people. So we were always the peaceful people who cared for the forest. So this area of North Georgia, what's now called North Georgia, Tennessee, South, the Blue Ridge Mountains, the Smoky Mountains, was considered the apothecary of Turtle Island. Of the thousands of herbs that grow and are used by Native American communities, over 1,800 of them had their native starting place here. So all these tribes would make the journey to the mound people, and they would trade for the roots and the seeds, and then take them back. So for thousands of years, humans were pollinators. They would take it back to their areas. Now they're all over the country, but they started here. So we were considered the healing place. And I still think there's vestiges of that spirit still alive today, because we have the Jimmy Carter Center, we have the Martin Luther King Foundation. Coca-Cola was started here as an herbal tonic. All of these, the Heart and Lung Association, the Cancer Society, we have so many healing modalities. Even one of the functions of the CDC is here. And that's extraordinary. They don't have satellites, you know what I mean? So I still think there's this feeling of healing that goes on around here, even though it's taken a back seat to what we call a good language. You see, one of the things we want to do now as a healing community is alter the narrative, the global narrative right now, because people aren't being kind to one another in the amount of profundity that we need for the children to be raised in a safe environment. So, language is the fabric of the culture. It matters how we speak to each other. It matters how we speak to ourselves. So one of the beautiful treasures, I believe, that the Muskogee people left as a legacy is these names. The Chattahoochee, Kusawati. Chattanooga, Tennessee is a sentence in the Muskogee language. It means the place of little red rocks by a bend in the river next to a mountain. And that's what it is. The Okmulgee, that's where we bathe. The Conestoga watershed. Conestoga means this is where we walk in prayer. The Cohutta wilderness, where I live, means this is where the earth touches the sky. The Nantahala, which a lot of people know, that's a rhetorical question. It means, don't the sun look good when it shines through the trees all day? Imagine a language when we talk to each other. This is where we bathe. This is where we pray. This is where my babies were born. This is, you don't have words of derogatory. Everything is about your relationship with nature. Nobody was concerned about survival. We're all going to leave one day and go to the happy hunting grounds, you know what I mean? And so while we're here, it's all about relationship. People say, fella asked me one time to come down to Fort Benning and teach survival skills to the rangers, because I know all these medicine plants and such. And so I figured this is a good opportunity to talk to the officer in charge. And so I said, well, sir, none of us are going to survive. If that's your goal, we've already lost. We're not going to survive this journey. But one day we're going to have to leave. We got a ride coming. And he said, well, what do you propose? I said, we need to teach them about relationships. If you know the water, and if you know the trees, and if you know the earth, and if you know these things, you don't have to worry about your survival. Nature will take care of you. There's always water, there's always food, there's always medicine everywhere you go. You just have to know where it is and how to find it. And you have to believe in the Creator's profound wisdom and access that. There was this pause. He goes, we don't do that touchy-feely stuff down here. I said, wait a minute. You got me all wrong. That's not what I'm talking about. So you can see I didn't get that job. And this is just a sample of where we are today and where I think the history is coming from. And so when asked to speak about the true story of Thanksgiving, it's like a lot of truths. I'll start by saying this. Truth left town a long time ago. Truth lives now deep in the forest. I'm going to say next to a waterfall. And if you want to find the truth, you got to go deep into the forest, find yourself a waterfall, and the truth is living right there. Now, some time went by. Truth was there for a long time, grew a long beard. Clothes became tattered. Kind of looked like what we used to call an old hobo, living in the woods. But then one day, when Truth looked up, here comes Beauty, just prancing down the path. Truth fell head over heels in love with Beauty. Beauty didn't recognize the Truth at first. It just looked like a tattered old, bearded old guy, you know, just been sitting there whittling away for years. But Truth was persistent, and it kept on courting the Beauty. Finally, Beauty was able to see inside the heart of the Truth. So they got married. And now we no longer have to look for the Truth. We look for the Beauty. And then we say, aren't our children beautiful? And the parents go, ain't that the truth? So it's much simpler for us in these days of truth being missed so much. People, this is my truth. What's your truth? But once upon a time, it was a common truth. The truth is the truth. Truth, and all truth and nothing but the truth. So help me. God, right? Once upon a time. So, having said that, the episode that took place back in the 1600s, when these renegades, and I say that in the best way possible, came over from Europe, running away from religious persecution and all the things they were running away from. You know, it's like they let a lot of them out of prison to go to the New World and start a new life in a new way. So hundreds of people who were basically runaways. Okay, that's coming. What's here now, in that area where they landed, was a tribe called the Wampanoag. Wampanoag is a word that means children of the light, children of the dawn. And they had been there for over 12,000 years. They knew every song of every tree. They knew every song of every flower, of every plant. They knew rabbit songs and wolf songs and bird songs. They knew the dances that every 12,000 years. Can you 500 years and we've almost tortured this place to death. Just in 500 years. 12,000 years they lived in this place. So they thought, well, we've got company. These people just landed and said, oh, they look hungry, they look starved, they look, let's care for them. Because in those days, and I dream about this coming back, we were shepherds, we were stewards, we were caregivers. That's it. We were shepherds, we were stewards, we were caregivers. So when these people showed up looking hungry and starved, they didn't look like they knew where they were, they didn't know what to do, they didn't know how to behave, they didn't know this place. So the Wampanoag says, well, we're going to help them. So they gave them some food. This went on for years, several years, not hundreds of years, but maybe a decade, And so over time, you say, well, the first year, here's some food. Second year, here's some more food. Then we start teaching them how to find their own food. And then eventually we showed them how we stored food for the winter. We had our own little, cold, what do you call it, like a root cellar. We had little holes in the ground we dug where we'd put the food and we'd cover it up, and then we could go back and retrieve it all winter, and we knew how to salt the meat and to make it dried and make it last for the winter and these kinds of things. So we can only speculate as to what happened, but I'm thinking there's a mindset, especially amongst the colonial people, and it's not about cooperation or collaboration, it's about competition. It's not about us joining forces, it's about winning and losing. And so the New World became a new place to exploit. There's gold in them there hills. You know what I mean? And I don't know how many trees I got to cut down. I don't know how many animals I got to kill. I don't know how much I have to pollute the water, as long as I can make some money, right? So that took over as far as these people were concerned. Native people had no idea. That's not the protocol at all. It's all about 7 generations. So if you do something and it can last for 7 generations, then do it. If it can't, then don't. In the meantime, take care of the children. A little side note that just touched my heart so deeply. I have a lot of ceremonial places in Africa. I have the Yoruba people in Ghana, the Zulu people in South Africa. I have the Bavinda people in Zimbabwe, and Botswana, and then Mali. And so I'm with the Maasai tribe. And so they meet each other, they shake hands like this. And the first question they ask you, how's your children? Because they say, ever what you respond to tells them everything they need to know about who you are, how you live, and what's going on. Can you imagine today? How's the children? How's the babies? Sometimes you can meet some old timers in the country who still do that, but it's pretty much a lost, heartfelt way. People are more interested in things like the economy, than they are the ecology, what it means to be a human being. Not a delusional ideology. I'm a Democrat, I'm a Republican, I'm a Catholic, I'm a Christian, I'm a Muslim, I'm a lawyer, I'm a doctor. What happened to being a human? Yes. A humanitarian person who has compassion and love and forgiveness and mercy and respect. Everybody I have seen that I've ever run into, no matter if they're four-legged or two-legged or winged ones, they all want respect. They all want dignity. Everybody in nature wants dignity. They've worked really hard to maintain a lifestyle on this rock for thousands of years. Okay. So, at some point, these pilgrims thought, hey, we don't really have to go find our own food. They've already got it. So they started robbing these root cellars and taking the food. Natives would notice it at first. They said, they're just hungry. They don't know any better. Forgive them, for they know not what they do, kind of thing, So they would be taking the food. So they got away with it for a little while. But then when they thought, well, hey, if a little bit, we could take a lot. And so pretty soon they started robbing all the food. And so then the natives would go out and get more food. But then after a while, a little skirmish would take place. And the skirmish would be that once that some let's call them royalty, whatever they were, from Europe, who came over here that wanted to be governors and chancellors and mayors and create some sort of hierarchy called a primitive government, a government oriented around the invaders, not the natural citizens. And that's still going on today, but that's another story. So, and the same thing the Georgian Guard did during the Trail of Tears. They started framing the Indians by doing things to other people. And see, the Wampanoag had 69 villages, 40,000 Wampanoag people. That's huge. A lot of people, all these villages. So they would go and they would set fire to one of the villages and act like one of the other villages did it. You know what I mean? And then the Wampanoag said, "No, wait a second, we've been living together, that's not..." But they would leave like false evidence around to make people think that was... So then they still do that today, divide and conquer. It's one of the protocols of like apartheid everywhere you go. And so it got out of hand. And so then it went south. So the original story of natives having a feast with pilgrims, and it's all happy and everybody's singing and praying, that may have been true at one point. But it went south pretty quick. And so eventually, within 10 years, there was no longer 60-something villages, there was 14 villages. Wow. And if you couple that with the fact that when they came, they brought smallpox and, so many diseases from Europe. And one thing led to another, and it just devastated that community. And so when they saw that happen, it became chemical warfare. They started giving blankets to the natives with smallpox viruses embedded into the fabric so that they could spread that amongst the people in Ohio. The Miami fox, the Oneida, the Seneca, the Onondaga, the Potawatomi, the Pequots, all of them started becoming less and less and less through these diseases that we were all immune to because nothing like that was in this country. We didn't know how to deal with it. Matter of fact, even today, a tribe from the Quechua and the Yanomami from Peru and Ecuador came up here recently and said, "Tom, we want you to help us." I said, "What?" They said, "I'm a shaman, I'm a curandero, and I know 300 remedies for my people, but our children are dying now from some disease, and I don't know what it is. But it started when Coca-Cola built a plant on the Amazon, and the water upstream, the water's coming down here, and we use this water. It's like water is life, right? So our babies are dying. We want to go to Coca-Cola, and we want to talk to the head of the beast." That's what they called it. And it's here in Atlanta. This is where the head of the beast is. Can you go down there with us and make sure that you translate properly what it is we want from the Coca-Cola? We want them to stop killing our babies by dumping these toxic pollutants into the Amazon. I said, "Yes, I'm with you." Roll my sleeves up, we go downtown to Centennial Park, we're sitting in front of Coca-Cola, and he spreads his mesa out on the sidewalk. He's singing, and I'm singing with him, and I said, "Yes, we're going to tell Coca-Cola something, we're going to make a difference." So he gets through praying, and by now we've got a crowd around us, right? Everybody said, "What y'all doing?" So he goes over to the Coca-Cola building, and he puts his arms up like this, and he just hugs the building, and he starts singing a lullaby, right? And he comes back, and he folds up his mesa, and we start getting ready to walk off, and I said, "Wait a minute." I said, "I thought we were going to go." He said, "Well, when I was praying, my ancestors started talking to me. And they told me that nobody in there is going to know what I'm talking about. They're just going to think I'm in there trying to stir up some trouble. Somebody from out of town, they don't understand a 9-to-5 job in downtown Atlanta and all that it takes to get up in the morning and get to work and sit to the..." So I said, "What happened?" He said, "Well, my ancestors told me my best shot at creating a difference was to send as much love as I could into this building for these people." He said, "So that's what I did." And I just felt like I had been reborn in that moment. I said, you are so right. I said, that is amazing. I said, I'm sorry, I fell off the track there for a little while. I was going to put somebody in the nose. I said, you're right on the money, right? It wasn't a week later. This is when a fellow named Jeffrey Dunn was the president of Coca-Cola America.
I don't want to interrupt you. Do a great thing here. We don't have you on the calendar here for a meeting at the clubhouse.
Go ahead, Tom. Excuse me, please don't interrupt.
No, I don't.
So he says, Joseph, what was I saying?
Jeffrey Dunn showed up.
Yeah, Jeffrey Dunn was the president of Coca-Cola at that time. About a week went by and he called me on the phone. He said, Tom, you don't know me. My name's Jeff Dunn. I'm the president of Coca-Cola. He said, I was talking to the people over at Captain Planet at the Ted Turner Foundation and telling them I wanted to do a sweat lodge. And they said, I don't have to go to South Dakota. You do one up in North Georgia. I said, yeah. He said, well, you think an old boy like me could join you guys in the ceremony? I said, absolutely. So he came up to do the sweat lodge and he didn't leave. He stayed for 3 weeks at my place in the woods, chopping wood for the fire, toting water, He said, I ain't had this much fun since I was a kid. He said, this is beautiful, this is great, this is what life should. So, here he's got 200,000 employees, right? So here goes the memo. He sends everybody a memo telling them exactly what the old boy from South America wanted to tell them, but instead of coming from a fella speaking Quechua or Yanomami in South American dialect, he was telling them as the authority figure for Coca-Cola. And to me, that reinforced how powerful love is, how powerful it is. So when I say love, serve, remember, you remember your ancestors because we are the ancestors of the future. This is kind of like ground school. We're going to be here for a little while, but we're going to be ancestors forever. And so we have to learn the ropes of what it means to be an ancestor and look down from above and see our children living a good life and being honorable and integrous and giving respect to the life and most importantly, caring for the children and protecting the water. Those are the two main things. That's all that really matters down here on the fundamental, heartfelt level of human interaction with nature. Protect the water. Water is life. 70% of the earth right now is under a drought. I know this ain't part of the story of Thanksgiving, but this is what's happening right now. There is no such thing as climate change. When you go into the hospital and you're in the emergency room, they don't say you're having a climate change. You're going through something. Mother Earth right now is in the 4th stage of an autoimmune deficiency. We are her immune system, and right now, as a collective group, we are deficient. We're not taking care of her the way we should. She's dehydrated. She has chills. She has fever. She has convulsions. She has eruptions. She's having seizures. Anything anybody would go through in the 4th stage of an autoimmune deficiency. So it behooves us, it's critical that each one of us strengthens our own immune system and starts being kind to one another and starts being caregivers and shepherds and stewards to everything we can. Whatever we do for a living is beside the point. Economy, no economy, doesn't really matter. We got along without this economy for thousands and thousands of years. You know what I'm saying? 12,000 years, people just traded. They just bartered. Real value associated with commodities. Today you have no idea what you're paying for. Money has no value anymore. You know what I mean? It's just off the charts. And so that, in a way, reflects our character, who we are. They say, I'm a good businessman. But are you ethical and moral, and do you make value-based decisions? Well, that's not important. I said, what? You need that before you go into business. An ethical business person, a person who has value-based decision-making skills. That seems to be absent from the resume in today's world. And so I think if we're going to help the children, they must know. So when children come up to our sanctuary, first thing I do is teach them about the water. The second thing is to start letting them understand that as far as we're concerned in the Muskogee creation story, this whole place was created out of music. Everything is based on the shape and the glory of sound. See, because originally in Sanskrit, when the Bible was written, this I got from ancient text, it said, it did not say, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was God. It didn't say that. It said, in the beginning was the sound, and the sound was good. That makes a lot more sense in my world, because what we know is that sound actually has shape. Sound has a configuration. You can see it. I mean, all you have to do is a small example, and I suggest you do that if you haven't. Take a piece of cardboard and put salt all over the top of it. Take a tuning fork and touch it to that cardboard and watch what happens to that salt. It looks like a snowflake.
Nice.
You do it again, it's still shaped, but it's a different shape. Because sound knows that this third rock from that dwarf star is going 68,000 miles an hour through the cosmos, and nobody has a clue where we're headed. It's an incredible joyride. Our people say, once we know that, what are you going to do? We say, sing, dance, honor this place, protect the children, save the water. We got a long way to go. We need these things, it's I want my children to have it. I want my grandchildren to have it. I want my great-grandchildren to have it. And when you think like that, and when you act like that, and responsible like that, now we have a future. See, and so my thing is, a lot of people make mistakes. And in today's, imagine if you listen to the dialogue today with the people who are holding the microphone, and think about 100 years from now, looking back, this is going to seem like the Dark Ages. People talk the plastic age, the age of toxicity, the age of pollution. There's more plastic in the Pacific Ocean right now than there are fish. That's unacceptable. All these things are unacceptable. We can't let people say, and while the place is dying underneath, it's just, what do you call it? Corroding right in front of us. So, we believe each one of us, and talk about that mirror that's going around, each one of us is critical to the success of all of us, because we are all related. All my relations, we're all related. If I say, okay, what are the similarities? Go back to the beginning. We all came through a mother. I think that's profoundly synergistic. What do we share in common? We all have a mother. If you're here and you don't have a mother, there's something wrong. We all need water. Everybody, you can't live without water. So that's two things we share in common. So, and you could climb from there and say, we all need somebody to love. We all need somebody to love on us. We all need a warm bed. You start thinking about what it is. Nobody wants to raise their baby in a war zone. Everybody wants to raise children in a safe environment where vulnerability is a place of healing, not a place of fear.